We're now live. So the question is, we're what, 18 months into this job? And would you say the wheels are falling off the wagon from what you've seen?
Fairly well, yes.
So my question to you, you worked for Rosenden. Hope you didn't sign any NDAs. How big do you think the file is for this casino for the electrical?
What they send you or what your cleanup does?
What they send me.
I would have to say at this point in time, it's probably over a gig.
1.4 gig.
Wow.
Okay. So I've got a fast computer. I mean, it's not even a year old. It's got 64 gig of RAM. How do people work in a file that I'm now opening it? You can see my little woo, woo, woo. You can see this opening speed. How do people work like that?
It's fairly slow. I know at Rosenden at one point on the NIH building, 14 stories, I believe, they opted to take the top 3 floors and make it its own model because working, opening and closing the file was a nightmare.
Why is that a problem? Why is that a bad idea? You want me to tell you?
Yeah, I know it's not a good idea, but
okay. Well, because
let me say that's in a model that's run by a pretty clean. You know, it was a fairly clean model. It was. There's just a lot of information, I guess. I don't know how it adds up on electrical.
Well, here's why splitting it by floors doesn't do you any good. And notice we're killing time right now because I would imagine whoever's working on this job has to do this same killing of time every time they open the freaking file.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see it's still opening. Here's the reason why it's a bad idea to split it by floors. If you got lights on the first floor and the same kind of lights on the upper floors where you've done your split, you now have that family in 2 different files. Therefore, you're not saving the file size of the families.
No, exactly. You're right. It's
right.
You're still getting all of the data, all of the mass,
all of them. All exactly. So that's where the splitting has to take a different approach. You have to split by the disciplines. You have to split by something other than that. That's why we split the plumbing from the mechanical. Granted, you might have some valves that are used for both, but usually hydronic valves are not going to be the same as domestic valves.
Yeah.
So you can see right now, everyone's scratching their head on this job. What is wrong with the BIM? What is wrong with the BIM? What is wrong with the BIM? And it's that you lose control of that size. You see this file still has not opened.
And most places, like Rosenden, you're synchronizing on a fairly regular basis too.
Well, and you're on BIM 360, so you're restricted to the network speeds. So I mean, I'm all coming from the hard drive, and this is still having these issues. So you can see it finally opened, and I'm simply going to a 3D view. Every move is like molasses. Now, granted, you probably can't you hide all imported objects? But even doing that just takes time.
Yeah.
You can, I mean, you can see the zoom speed. So you can only imagine how that's beating you up all the way along as you're trying to do any doggone changes.
Yeah.
Now, by all means, I would love to sort of at some point come back and pick through this file and look at how they set stuff up. I'd even like to discuss some of that stuff with Gaylord to try to review how we could make that. I mean, I personally think that we could give them some advice. Granted, we already know they're not going to take it. Everybody just wants this job to go away.
Yeah.
But you still have to be able to work with it. All right. So what I ended up doing was whenever I have a bad file, I went into that file and I exported all the families that were in there. And these families right here down to 1 meg, like we talked about when we were creating the families. It's only 75 meg worth of families. But you're going to be amazed how much space that would end up taking off. Now, granted, here's where, and I'm hoping that maybe Ginger, if she's not listening right now, she'll go back and watch this, or maybe Trey will go watch this. Here's a service you could do, which is we could fix all of these families for Gaylord and tell them they could then just drop them into their project and the file size would drastically be reduced. You with me? So yeah. You could have an architect who's got a 800 megabyte file, and with us simply cleaning their families, giving them those families back, and having them update their families, they could take a 500 megabyte file and reduce the file size.
Yeah, but
how much do you think? Go ahead.
How perfect is that? Because in times trying to do this in the past, the big one that becomes a problem is elbows or connection points.
Well, that was a problem pre-2025 because of what we talked about last week. You couldn't rehost a duct or pipe or electrical connection. But in 2025, you can now rehost that so you don't lose that connection, so you don't break the family.
Okay.
So that was only a bug up until 2025. How many jobs do you think are being used in 2025? It's a bug that really still exists.
Yeah.
To a good point. But my question is, so if there's only 75 megabyte into those bad families, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get out of this file. And I'm going to open my other one. Okay. So this, and you'll notice right out of the gates, do you see the difference in how my 3D view looks compared to how their 3D view looks?
Yeah.
How do you think I got all of this conduit and everything a color and the lights a color? How did I do that? Do you have any idea?
Filter.
No. What you would simply do is very few people know this one, but if you go to manage and object styles, all I did was I created a material that gives it the color and applied that to all cable trays and cable tray fittings.
I got you.
So all I had to do was make a couple materials for the disciplines that were in this file.
I got you.
How do you know what's in the file? 2 ways, right? One way is to write this neat little schedule that I've gotten written right here, right? Mm-hmm. See, this tells me all of the objects that are in that file that I need to give color to make them work. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So when I do this, then brings in a couple questions like, why do you have structural framing? Well, they probably have some unistruts and some other things. That's what you end up finding it for their hangers and shit like that. So that makes sense. But what we have to do is when we want to split a file, we want to look at it from this multi-category aspect. That's where I'm saying the split file should probably be the lighting devices, the lighting fixtures, the data devices, and the communication devices. That's probably what I would split out into a separate file.
What about specialty equipment? Because isn't specialty equipment probably going to be the cameras and stuff in the ceiling?
Yeah, that would be good. But now here's the benefit. So I go to the specialty equipment. I just go over to this thing here, over to the other view. And then I say isolate. And now we can actually see what the specialty equipment is. Because remember,
it's the panel backing.
It's the panel backers, correct.
Which would stay electrical.
But I would think you'd want to keep with the panels so that if you move the panels.
Yeah.
So
and I'm just being the devil's advocate here, or actually curious about it. What about the conduit for the lighting?
Well, that's where it's tough because they didn't really draw the conduit for the lighting.
Yeah, obviously I get that, but if it was in there, what would you do with it? Would you keep it with the conduit and the electrical runs, or would you keep it with the lighting stuff?
I would keep it with the electrical runs for the simple reason of you really only connect to one light.
Yeah,
that slot on the panel only connects to one light. Then all the conduit for the lights, as you jump around all the lights, that I would put in the lighting plan.
Gotcha.
That makes sense?
Yep.
But the bigger one to go with is if we take that 75 meg, let's see, let's do this and this, and look at those bad families, which are these. So what I want to do is I want to save this guy so we can actually see what it is, see what its file size is. What you're going to find, this is this electrical fabrication, and it's updated, right? It should update right there. Let's see, electric. Oh, do you have any solution for that one? My window's gone bad that it no longer sorts until I hit refresh.
Again, I have multiple issues with the interface with Windows now. Similar to that. I had ways of browsing in folders, but I can't do anymore.
So the bottom line is, as they're improving this software, they're also degrading it because they're losing functionality because of issues.
Yeah.
All right. So, but at any rate, let's get back to this electrical fabrication at 1114. You see that file size is 460 megabyte.
Which one's that? The one you have open right there?
The one that I've cleaned.
Okay.
The one I've deleted. Over here. I've deleted all sheets. I've deleted everything. I've run the Pi Revit to wipe the materials out.
So you were able to knock 1 gig out, basically.
I knocked 1 gig out, correct. That's with all the stuff that's not necessary for the BIM model for us to see what's in 3D. I took nothing away from 3D. I just took away 2D information. That 1 gig that I knocked out, it would have probably caused me not to have to try to download it 6 times because it canceled out 5 times because it was too big to go across Whiting Turner's SharePoint internet connection.
Yeah.
Okay. So not having control of that size, that's a terrible thing.
Well, and it's also problematic because how many files are we talking about? I know that, mechanical and plumbing are pretty good control. But you got a fire protection, you got a structural model.
We're gonna get into them next, and we're gonna try to wrap this up by noon. This way, at least we've got a live one out there today. But I just want to try to, we're reviewing why the people who don't do BIM and don't do VDC don't understand that the problem that is going on with this project right now is loss of the control of the files. They're just too unwieldy in size, so then it makes it very difficult for people to make these revisions on the fly. Because really, we talked about this before. We should be having these BIM meetings where we make the changes, submit our drawings after the BIM meeting, and everything is done. It doesn't need a bunch of follow-up emails and did you do this and did you do that, and finding out that no one ever did any of that information. But getting back to this, what I want to see is these files, these ones that are up to the 1 meg. Okay, I'm going to stop right there so we talk. It's just 36 objects, and they're only 74 meg in file size. All right. So you would think that if you didn't have those in your file, you would save 74 meg. So we could take that guy that was electrical, that was 460. We should be able to get it down to somewhere around 390 if you're just talking simple math.
Yeah.
That's not the way it works. So let's look at doing this. So what I found is, and you might not know this, or someone might not, is if I copy that name and I come over to families and I say search and I paste that name in, it's going to take me right down to him. In which case I could take that family and let's pretend instead of it being 6.4 meg, let's pretend it was 80 or 800 kilobytes or something like that. But instead, what I'm going to actually do is, just to see the impact, I'm going to delete that family. And there's only 2 of them in there for my project. Okay, so if I go down this list, I think what I found is it's better if I do it by name. Nope, I got to do it by size. That's right. So my next trick was, since it's by size, these are all over. They're not like beside each other. So what I ended up finding is if I did a new folder, and I took all the ones that were bad and I copied them. Copy. Into that new folder. Now I can sort by name. And you'll see now what happens is now I can get multiples that are right beside each other really quickly. So I take this guy, I do the Control-C, I come over here and I do a search, and I do a Control-V, and I say next. Takes me to it. Oop. And I can delete him. Then I got a 1/4 enhanced. You'll see that the next 3 are all right beside each other. See, so if that family was made better so that it worked for all those units, another thing you would do is not have 4 of those families. It would just be one parametric.
Yeah.
So regardless, I'm just going to delete those. That takes me down to the RMC nipple, which if I don't see it right away, what I do is this Control-C. Did you know about this search?
Yeah, I knew it was there. I haven't utilized it a bunch.
So there's the nipple. Look, the 34 KO is the next one. Then we got a 3-inch. Don't the 3-inch is all right. The 6-inch is bad. That took me down to there. So this is the next one I need. Control C. Search. Control V. Next. Right there. And it does look like I have both the 4 and the 4 square and the 411. Looks like the conduit. That's a really evil one. All right, so we'll take those 3 out. That was down to the conduit, so now I need this one.
Does that version at the end of some of those family names come from the company, or is that coming from one of those?
That comes from someone duplicated that damn family to try to make it do something else. You know how you've had to do that, right?
Yeah, no, but that's a lot of them, and that doesn't seem to be beneficial to have that in the family name.
Yeah, well, remember, this is from Evolve.
That's
so
what I was saying. Is it something that's being pushed by Evolve or Siskiyou or one of those add-ons?
It is by Evolve. And that was where I tried to tell Paul that, there's some things, even though Evolve is good, Evolve doesn't have to work in the actual files. So they don't realize some of these problems that are coming in. Who knows? Maybe someone from Evolve could be watching this and realize that they can make this stuff better, because I will go back and show you some of what it was doing. Let's see, the Kick 92. Then there's a Kick 90 V11. And then there's a 2P V11. And then there's another one. All those offsets. All that stuff is just what they've done is they have too many nested families in those. I'll open some of these so we can look at how to review them, but I want to get the oversight first.
No, I got you.
Right, so now we're down to the switchboard. Control C. Why do I not see it? Oh, right there. Can't quite see my grade. All right. So the switchboard. And some of these are on right there on the threshold where you could let it go with 1 meg, but I'm just taking everything that I did as, let's see, sleeve V1. Yep. Oh, looks like we got a bunch of trapezers. Control C. Search. Control E. All right. That looks like the V8. Yep. NHW, those 4. So now we're down to the Gaylord Duck Bank. Come on, baby.
Was it still removing the last one?
It was. Yeah. That was why I was waiting. Hey there. Control V. Highlight it. Oh, you know what? Was that the one I did first? Control C. Search. Control V. Yep, it says there's none of those in there. Control C. I'm going to leave that chandelier. And the reason is because we're going to split lights next. Search, Control V. Now this will be all these nested. So where's the one tier?
Had you already been splitting the lights out?
Nope. They never had lights before this one.
Okay, I didn't think so. They had some boxes, but not lights.
Yep. 1, 2, 3, 4. What's the next one? Let's see. We'll go those 4 to there. All right. Nested CFEMT. Nested CFEMT connector. See, those are the ones. That's in every one of their damn elbows and stuff. That's the connector that gets turned on, and they've got every type of connector built into it. I'll end up showing you that in a second. But let's see. For the kicks, there's the kick 2PV11 and the FB2. Nope. Kick 2PV11. Yep. Those two go away. That got to there. Now we got our offset. Offset FB2PV11. And just V11. That's those two. This tube steel, it's 1 meg. I'm going to let it be. I'm going to get rid of this guy and that guy. Control C. Worries me about that. You look at that weird character right there. Can you even see that?
I don't know what that is.
Oh, it's because it was copied from the internet, more than likely, right? It's a storage container, Uniteam storage container. All right. And then the Unistrut panel rack is the only last one.
That's going to be all of them, I bet. It's going to take, those things are all one family.
I don't think so.
I don't think.
Let's find out. Delete. How many does it say? 237 objects. No, I don't think that's that many locations.
I bet.
Now remember, the goal is not to actually delete those things. The goal is to fix those 36 families. Give them to Gaylor. Say, put these in your project. Now, my question is, we got rid of these 36 objects that are 74 meg. How much is my file going to be reduced?
Well, my logic would say 75 meg, but I'm guessing not.
Let's see. We'll call this one dash. Oh, I don't want to call it light because we're about to make lights. We'll call it
purge
reduced. And that should pop up right about here when we're done, and we'll do this comparison. My thought being is I think people need to see how to clean up the file instead of just pulling their hair out because their file's terribly slow.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen anyone address this kind of issue. You know, they teach you, they say you can master Revit in 6 hours or master Revit with 12 1-hour lessons, but they never really get into any of this. So I don't know how you're mastering it.
Well, you're working on a 2-room cabin.
Well, it wasn't far off from what your guess was. We lost 100 meg. We dropped by 100 meg in size. Okay. See, now my theory is 357 is still too big. Okay. So I go back here and I say, so now we've made this one called reduced. If we took all of the, did we say what the generic models were? Isolate elements. And these are not actually a generic model. This is the nested shared family of the clearance box.
What's the other, though? Are those light boxes, or is that framing for?
These are these racks.
Oh, I'll bet they're assemblies. No?
I'm pretty sure they did make some as assemblies, but essentially it's they made those as generic models. They could do a little bit better with their with their categorizing of the families. But the
Where are
gist
those
is
things running?
Huh?
Where are those things running? Have we run into those ever?
They're underground.
Oh, okay.
They're not in the plenum space.
Gotcha.
But see, this led me to believe that, you know what? I forgot to do something that I want to make sure first before I go any further. I forgot to do a purge after I did all that cleanup. Then you got to do that save as, and you got to remember to go to options and say compact.
Or compact. I'm sorry, I said compressed.
Yep. And let's see what that ends up being.
What about, do you run an audit on the file ever beforehand?
I don't generally run audits.
Okay.
I don't generally. It's a good idea. There's only been a couple times that I've needed to audit when it was like an end of files dropped off or something like that. Usually it's a bug in Autodesk software, but I'm sure it doesn't hurt to run it. I'm sure someone might give me some better reasons to run it, but I found that it isn't always necessary. All right, so that meant we went down actually about 130 megabyte by removing 75 megabyte worth of families. Now, I would bet that if you just rewrote those families and made them a reasonable size, I would bet we would be right now at about 350 instead of 335. Remember, we removed them.
Yeah. So you're talking about 36 families that you really want to be in the 100 to 500 megabyte range if you can.
Exactly. Well, and even 335, I still say is too big for a project, which is why we were going to go in here and we were going to say, let's take out our lighting devices and fixtures. And now a lot of times it helps me to grab a snippet, but the idea is the objects that I delete from here, I'm then going to reopen the reduced file and delete the opposite object. So I'm going to be having a file with just lighting devices, just lighting fixtures. I like what you said with the data devices because they probably don't have those. Well, let's get the lighting. Let's get the lighting first. And you can see that one of the reasons the lighting should drop us a decent amount of size is because there's 14,000 objects.
Yeah.
But the number two reason is because there's probably a lot of families. Okay? And think about these families like we just did when we removed those families. Let's see. That's not going to let that one get selected. Let's see this one. 530 and delete. See, that's a frustrating one right there. Why does it not pick those? Delete.
None. There's 6 in your filter or something in your filter, I think.
No, you know what the reason is? I'll bet you any money. Because they're nested families. They're nested shared families. So if I pick the lighting fixtures, go to here, It didn't pick them. Data devices, go to here. What I'm looking is down here at the corner to see if those highlight. Oh, I'm so stupid. Because they were pinned. Of course, they had to be pinned.
I was going to say. Wait, yep, all their lights were pinned?
No, 2,163 of them were pinned. All right, now these lighting fixtures are something weird is going on because I don't see. Oh, there it is, unpinned.
Wow.
Okay.
Why was half of that circle pinned and half not, or were they pinned in two different batches?
Yeah, I don't really know. So this is all going to be electrical equipment and all of the racks for it and all the conduits and cable trays that go to the electrical equipment. You could really get rid of these communication devices. I'm going to look at it, see what they are. I probably am going to get rid of those communication devices as well.
Meaning you're going to put them in the other?
Yep. Communication devices, 5 of them, and delete. Okay, so the benefit is now you've got this multi-category schedule, and then you'll have the other multi-category schedule, and you shouldn't be losing any data. You've just split them in half. Now, since we did all that stuff as delete, not delete the families, when we do this purge, it should find an awful lot of stuff to purge, 586 objects. Okay, maybe turn this stuff back on. And then we'll do a save as. When you do a save as and make it a new name, you don't have to do the compact. See, so this would be, let's call this part 1, which really I would name typically better. I would call this my electrical and my electrical lighting, but I'm going to do it as part 1. What you'll notice is when you do a save as, it automatically compacts the file. You see how it's grayed out and checked on?
Yep. So I knew that.
I figured you knew that, but I'm guarantee you there's people that don't know that. So now we can go back and look at this guy. Just was here. Here's part 1. And we're hoping that this is going to be under 200 megabyte. I would put a limit of 200 megabyte on a file size. And we're just over 200. Okay. So now the question becomes, if we close this, yep. And that's why you don't like to be at 200 megabyte.
Yeah.
Even at that, you're still going to delay. You're going to have some delay. My question is, Eric, how do you even get anything done if you said you worked on files that are 1.5 gigabyte? I mean, is that not the worst, slowest day of your life?
It's unbearable. You find stuff to do while you're having to synchronize, or even there. It was really problematic with zooms when you're trying to pan around in 3D or zoom in 3D or in an overall file where everything's turned on. It's near impossible. And the worst part was when I was there and you would do a synchronize, because they had so many people synchronizing to so many. I think they might have had 5 servers, but there was multiple offices synchronizing to one server. There was times where you would be stuck in a queue long enough that it would kick you out and your synchronize wouldn't go through.
Yeah, or it would tell you you couldn't synchronize because someone else had those objects under control because they were syncing.
Oh, yeah. And there was no rhyme or reason. There was just a list of issues in a job, and you just pulled it up and went to it. And they weren't always in the same part of the building. So you're just losing time.
Well, so if I go back to the reduced, and this one we're going to need to remove all the other objects. This is how I split a file. And if you're thinking about it, you can sort of know which sheets to keep if you're trying to actually work in the file. If you're not trying to do the BIM coordination side of it, but you're actually trying to maintain your file, like you said you were working on the NIH project.
Mm-hmm.
You could actually make all of your telecom stuff in one file and all of your electrical in another file and all your lighting in another file. Be cognizant of your family sizes, and you probably could have fixed that project. I think I wanted to at that time, to be honest with you. Let's see if we do a WT. So all we need to do is take all the rest of them. So we don't want generic models, electrical fixtures, electrical equipment. Make sure I used to always just hit the delete button, but with these guys, they've pinned so much stuff. It's best to just go with these stupid icons, which I don't understand why people pin stuff, because even though it's pinned, we can go over this another time. You know that you can still change the object even if it's pinned.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I would bet that a majority of times it's when you've got new people working on projects with experienced people, and the experienced people get over the fact that they've got shit jumping out of plane.
Yeah, I agreed. And it will keep some of that from happening, but you're foolish to think that it'll keep all that from happening, because it won't. Pinning an object does not mean that you can't mess it up.
No, I know.
It just means you can't delete it. You can't move it accidentally. There's some things that you can't do, but there's a lot that you still can do to mess it up. So if you're wondering how pin stuff got messed up, it can get messed up. As I said, we'll cover that in another one where I'm actually looking at it. Let's see. Come on, baby. You're almost there. It sort of gives you a feel of how bad, and then that's because if you look at it, the number of fittings and the number of conduits is excessive. Me personally, I probably would have split the conduit into the site package as well as the building package, but you can't fix everything late in the game.
Oh, this is both buildings?
No, this is just one building, but if you notice, they've got light poles all the way around the outside.
Oh, yeah. I got you. Well, no, that's the thing. I mean, this is going this slow, and this is not even, you don't even have the other disciplines turned on. That's where the coordination becomes so difficult towards the end.
Well, and that's where I think that we're off. That's where we're at in this project, and because you choose not to fix it, it makes it impossible to stay up to date with what the field's doing. The field is moving faster than you are, and we've experienced that, right?
Yeah.
Holy smokes. Yeah, I would definitely say when it comes down to the conduit, when you're, and there's probably, it has something to do with the number. Like I said, that 25,000 pieces of conduit, we might even find that in the mechanical file as well. You get these last two, cable trays and fittings. You might have to split, like, you have all this pipe, but you might want the process pipe and the hydronic pipe and the domestic pipe. You might want to split those sometimes. I would imagine the same is going to be true with some of the conduit. just in the amount of count. So this should essentially be a lighting package. Now, I'm very curious. What are these things?
It's a family. It's the food service trays.
It's our food services. That's what it is.
It's our food service lines.
Oh, that's because I had put the mechanical on the plumbing in so I could run interferences. And because the food services was conduit, that's why it showed up, because you would actually find that they've changed all that stuff by here, which of course we've talked about and we'll go into again as filters. Either way, we've cleaned up most of this stuff. If I then go to this purge
twice,
yeah, probably. Save as, we'll save this guy as part 2, which is the lighting package. Part 1 is the electrical. And if we look at Caesars, part 2 is 130. So we turned a 335 into a 210 and a 130, which means we're only 5 megabyte bigger than the original file. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
Which I think is fairly reasonable. Now, I bet you I know where that 5 meg is. I bet it's right here on the electrical. This is a good one for people to see, because what happens is, you see these conduit fittings? You see how they didn't get purged out? Tell me why.
Part of the system?
Exactly. Part of this conduits. See those two guys? What you need to do is you would need to duplicate this guy, go into him, and say none and none. Same with this one. Duplicate that guy, go into the duplicate, and say none and none. Would probably be a good idea to also get the cable trays. Oh. Duplicate it. And make all these say none. See, because if those families are used in that cable tray style, then you can't purge them. Even though there was no cable trays.
No, I understand how that works.
Well, I'm just
it's the same as not being able to. It's the same as not being able to purge out the last. There's a few things
stacked
where
wall, the last stacked wall.
Yeah, or just there's a few things where if you try and purge them out, it says it has to have one in the project.
Yes, but it doesn't mean it has to have one that has that nasty stuff loaded into it. See, so if I take all those, you'll see we didn't even have any place, so it didn't matter. But now when I do my purge, I can purge 34 additional objects.
That's going to get you your 5 meg, or maybe
think?
even more.
We'll see.
It should take you a little bit more than that.
I'm betting it takes it to 125, which shows you that their 2 added up are equal to the 335 that it was. $126. Now we're only 1 megabyte bigger. But I think we talked about a very important concept there, which is the fact that if you want to get rid of those stacked walls, You have to have this guy, but it doesn't mean that it has to be a nasty wall,
I got you.
right? So now that's the way to split that file. Now, what I wanted to show you was, see if this doesn't make you groan just by watching my screen. Voila! Your favorite
What is it?
autocrat,
yeah.
right?
Yep.
So my question is, how is someone working in a file like this? This is the framing.
What did they bring in for our information? They don't.
I don't know. I don't know what they do. I think they look at it in Navis. I'm not really sure. I'll be quite honest with you. There's so much that isn't framed. And part of the reason that it isn't framed is what you're seeing right now. Because while we're talking about trying to keep a Revit file to 200 meg,
Yeah, I don't even want to know.
do you even remember what you needed to keep an AutoCAD file into before it turned into a nightmare? I mean, look, that AutoCAD file is still opening. I mean, you can't fault these framing people for not being able to get these bulkheads the rest of the way framed.
But that file's 60 KB?
This file is 98 meg. Can you see that right there, 98 meg?
Nah, I'm seeing KB. It's fine.
It says 98.98,771 KB, which is 98 meg.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And everything in here, this is what I don't understand. I don't even know, because you can see it's still opening. Okay. It still is not opened.
Man.
Now it's opened. Okay. Watch what zooms are like. This one here, if I change this orientation,
that's a problem. It reminds me of Soft Desk.
Yeah, pretty much.
So they're just extrusions? They're just extruded lines?
Well, what I ended up finding up with this one is UCSW. Now you click on that top cube, then it'll be oriented the right way. I just can't even imagine having to draw in this file. So it does appear to have some pretty neat stuff. Like this is actually
an array.
An array, correct. Which I spent time and I said, you know what? If I isolate object, and you take that thing and you explode it, see now there's some that are individual sections. And these are path arrays. I don't really understand the whole concept there. But I can tell you I wasted all of Saturday between cleaning this file up, making it usable. And one of the things that's really frustrating is, let's see, I love this one here. So you see this up here at the top? It says isolate. Is the name of the command. And this one is unisolate.
Okay.
Not to be confused with isolate and object isolation. So in other words, Autodesk in AutoCAD, when you say isolate, are you talking about isolate layers? Are you talking about isolate objects? And most people don't even know the isolate objects exist.
Oh man, I just don't understand in design, in construction, fine in machining or whatever, but I just don't see the struggle to stick with AutoCAD.
Well, that's where what I'd like to do is,
I mean, it's been a long time. It has been a long time.
I'd like to later this week try to show these people how they could have done this in Revit, because that's the problem. Because unfortunately, framing is so specific, most people would say you can't do that in Revit. And I want to take that next step. I want to have a session like we're talking about right here, where we show them how you could do this in Revit, and they essentially say, holy smokes, we want to switch to Revit. We didn't know you could do that.
Yeah.
But the transition to Revit is tough as it is just to learn Revit. Now, could you make them expert framers in Revit in relatively short time? Yes. Could you make anyone an expert user in Revit in 2 hours, 6 hours, 9 hours, 2 hours? No. You will never be an expert user. The whole reason we want to have this website is you'll never be an expert user. You will always evolve. You will change your process and increase your capacity of what you can do. Even, how many years are you into this? We're into this 20 years, Eric.
Into Revit?
Yeah. 2006.
2007 is when I officially converted, but we toyed with it prior to that.
So you're talking 18 years. Are there not things that you still learn?
Maybe it was 2006. You're right, because the version was 2007, which they always pumped out early.
That's right. Well, there was no 2007. It was Revit 6, Revit 7, Revit 8, Revit 2010 when Autodesk purchased them and enrolled and started doing the Windows, the ribbon tab.
Okay.
2010 was when the ribbon tab came in, and I'll be honest, that's when Revit took a major punch in the nose. That's when it really slowed down. If you remember when we worked in Revit 6 and 7, as soon as you picked on the Revit icon, you could start drawing. I mean, there wasn't even a 1 second delay into when you could actually start drawing. When Autodesk put all that ribbon nonsense in there to make itself Microsoft compliant, all of a sudden it took a lot longer to open up.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And since then, it's been a dismal nightmare, which then puts you in a position where, would you tell someone they should really do their framing in Revit? Probably not. But when we go over how I have envisioned how to do all of this framing in Revit, God, they could have saved a lot of time and not ended up with a file that runs like you're seeing. I mean, this is just horrid how this thing runs. More importantly, there's so much bulkheads that are not actually built yet. I mean, come on, where's the bulkhead here? You can't have just that.
Yeah.
Now, remember, this is just ceiling framing. Then they, on top of that, okay, because they have the exact same issue that we do, right? They said, oh my gosh, this file is getting so slow. They actually have another file, which is called the
cabinetry framing.
And you'll see how long the walls take to open.
Do they do cabinetry framing as well? I guess there's not that much cabinetry.
No, I would imagine that would be someone else. This is going to be all the light gauge studs is what this is going to be.
Yeah.
And a lot of this is really nonsense because what we would see, they're not going to frame that like that. And you'll see that I added this visualizer.
They don't even have a corner stud?
No, that's exactly right.
What is that element you're selecting?
That element I'm selecting, it was only hovered over it. It is a block. Okay.
All right.
Now,
So it's just got the stud spaced at whatever.
exactly. You could probably freeze the drywall.
But yeah, it didn't corner.
Correct. More importantly, when one wall comes, let me actually try to hide that.
Is that because the way the way they're set up to do it is just flawed, is just broken? Or is that because the user maybe didn't know how to corner these walls out?
Well, that's not it.
Because if we get this, if someone gets this in the field to build that, what are they supposed to do? They're just going to go from their knowledge of how to do the corner.
Well, that just shows you that the studs aren't necessarily going to be where the studs are.
Yeah.
See, and I think when I did that freeze, I need to do settings. And right now it's at block settings. Can't you do just an
I remember having add-on tools that we had to load to do certain things that I remember needing.
See, I don't remember how you can freeze, but I'm pretty sure there's some JIP. There it was. Hold on. I saw it a second ago.
Right there, wall JIP. 3 from the bottom.
Yeah. All right. So another thing that happens is when this wall dead ends into this wall, they need to put a T joint, extra studs in there for where the two walls intersect each other. And you sure as heck don't do this situation. That's not what it would be.
Yeah.
This track would be continuous. So they're not building it accurately. Part of the reason is because if you take those objects, and what I found is if I do an explode, it's beautiful. That all turns them white, right? Because these are on 0.
Okay.
However, if you do a burst, that was what you were just talking about. That's where you have to download the express tools. The burst keeps them on the right level.
All right.
And what they are meshes. Sometimes they're meshes and sometimes they're solids.
Meshes don't sound like that's good.
Meshes are actually much lighter than solids. Yeah, those are all meshes. I know there was somewhere that they were solids. Yeah. But you can see every time I pan just enough, then I get this. I would imagine you would be shooting yourself. I mean, you can't enjoy working like that.
Just depends on where you start out.
Let's see this one here, burst.
My first job was the Panther Stadium. You know how slow that file was?
I think that's one where they don't actually even go up to the top.
Why is there doubled up?
There's a double piece. There's one at the top and there's one at the bottom. There's like a 1 foot section. And I'm guessing what happened is someone at that company made one type of block and then someone else made another type of block, because you can see that is a mesh. Those are both meshes. I was getting it. It might have been in the ceiling that they were solids. That's because I'm about to go nuts here, because I swear I remember seeing this. If I burst this and I burst that, That's a 3D solid. So you can
It
see
seems
for the walls,
illogical.
they
It's
did it.
just,
That for walls, they did it as meshes. And for this, they did it as solids. And part of the reason that this file is so bad, the ceilings is so bad, is because solids.
what are the horizontal pieces made out of?
A solid in this file, and in the other file, probably a mesh. Let's see, first. It is. In the walls, it's meshes, and in the ceilings, they're solids.
So they got two different teams, and they started with a different seed file or a different whatever.
Yep. But I do remember from the 1990s making a lot of solids in an AutoCAD file just balloons the size of it because it's keeping center moment of inertia and all kinds of crazy stuff.
Gotcha.
And see what I had done was a visualize. I set that thing to be rendered. Really?
You forgot to apply materials.
No, I wanted to actually turn it in that visualization because you can see that they also drew all these extra planes and stuff in there, which is what I had to clean out in order to get the Deluxe model to show correctly. But you can see there's a lot of framing that's still missing. Is that part of the walls? Is it part that hasn't been drawn? Or is it bulkheads that you're not understanding?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that was some of what I faced. Let's see if I close these two. And then we'll probably break for this. I was really hoping to get some feedback on what that diffuser is. This 2:00 meeting is going to be a real interesting one.
Yeah.
So the other guy is your fire. And it's 83 meg. Now, this is the big giant question that we got to have in Tuesday's meeting because this one really bothers me.
Oh, this is the one you said's out of scale?
Yes. You got to just be patient. There it comes. It's starting to come. You remember how he was slightly out of the height a little bit?
Yeah.
I think that's coming from this thing being in a scale because this box we were all told was supposed to be 5 foot by 5 foot. And you can see that that's 5 foot and 3/16 of an inch.
Huh.
So what begins to worry me is if it's 3/16 of an inch off in 5 feet, how much is it off over here?
Yeah.
Now, where does that come from? Watch this. Let's see, draw a line with an L. Can you see that start point?
Ow.
Oh, that's not actually that far off, is it? Oh, I know why. Is it in UCS World? No, UCS World.
I can barely read those numbers, but
It
mine is
says
1100.
Yeah, it's only 1100 as opposed to. That's right, because they were the ones who had the bigger problem. I'm going to open up that the walls, much as I don't want to open up the walls. But I'm guessing something in the software that converts it to an AutoCAD drawing. Somehow it's blowing the scale of it. So when I drew this one, look at that number. Can you even see that number?
That's a big one.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It's 11 million feet away from 0, 0.
Okay. So that was in the framing file. That's a lot of contributing to the bullshit.
I have a feeling that's creating some of the problem. That's that floating decimal point error issue that I was worried about. So how did this job get to this position? This is how it got to this position. Not controlling the file size. I mean, you know that's what we pushed all along. And we do have a little bit of an issue because we've got our key plan is inordinate in its size, and I'd like to try to fix that. It's not killing us because we're still, even though we have so much more information than the other teams, look at our file size compared to them.
Yeah.
It's why we can still work and they have such a difficult time in working. Because I think if I go back to this new folder, let's see, families in the mechanical. Look, man, we only have that many bad families. We have 28 bad families, and most of those are key plan and key plan. And all the air handlers that came from the manufacturer that we had to use and were never cleaned up.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling we could go back into our key plans and do some purging. There's some raster images that were left behind whenever we were trying to do that stuff real fast. That we could probably get our mechanical file back down to a reasonable size. Speaking of which, I'd like to see. See, now why didn't my file size go down? And I have nothing in trash.
I didn't even see the files in the list. The files aren't on my list yet.
No, I haven't posted them yet.
But if they're not on the server, then how are they even showing up on there?
I don't know.
I'd like to be.
I'll have to figure that one out. But I wanted to at least review with you and have this up there. This is why people can't get anything done in the project right now, is because we've lost control of the files. And then as well as not being coordinated the best from the top, because you know what we covered with those access panels. I mean, you saw some of those access panel moves when he's asking me to move the stuff directly underneath steel. What do you do?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I get it that you don't want an access panel in an accented ceiling or whatever. But you need to communicate that. You need to give us a spot somewhere in the area or the relative areas where we can access it.
Well, you need to look at what that access panel is serving and come up with a solution. You can't just keep saying these simple fixes.
Yeah.
And then why didn't you make these simple fixes?
Yeah.
Well, I think that put us what? That put us at a little bit hour over on this live stream. You know, my real intention is to try to have more like a whole day, but let's try to get this built up to that
That's
end.
fine. That's
Um,
fine.
what did I want to cover? Oh, I wanted to cover. Let's go ahead and get rid of the AutoCAD now that I've talked about that. See, I think it would be beneficial to be able to somehow to the stream and clip out these important short little segments. So I split that file. We went over splitting the file. The other thing we were going to do, let's see, download, yep, those guys there into Caesars. And this should say, yep. So if I open that composite, that electrical file link is on there, and that's what's slowing him down. It's got to be. Let's see. Electrical. Nope, electrical's not loaded. That was the, yep. Wouldn't have thought that would have been that fast or that slow. So what we've got in this one is I told them I would write them a schedule. See, turn off our, my darling wife has all those damn Revit links showing up in my 3D view. See, you should be able to see from this file here that this is a problem because oh, she's got some kind of filter on there. Because of how high you have to go to access that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that one should have been lowered. Yeah, that one should have been lowered. Shouldn't it have?
The whole run?
This whole run should have, it may have needed to be offset up, and then it should have been offset back down so that VAV was closer. What I'm looking for is how could we, you know, we never did get any of these answers, did we, on these where we told them that the diffuser location doesn't match the other location?
Nope. Dude, that's a year ago.
Yeah, I know. I want to look at one more. There looks like there's two right here. I bet this one's inaccurate.
That's a plumbing one.
Yeah, but see what I'm saying is she's got that plumbing box too high. That didn't need to go up to 17'6". It probably needed to go to about 15, 14, 13, right? That's all the higher you needed to access those points. What I want to know So I want to know what the height minus the ceiling height is.
So you can tell how far you're up above the ceiling you're reaching?
Correct. In order to make that appear in a schedule, it needs to be a shared parameter, right?
Yes.
So we need to go to here. We need to go to a shared parameter. We need to select, let's see, what would we put this in? We'll probably do a new one, a new group. Call it coordination. In there, we'll put access, height above ceiling. Control C. We're going to make this be a length. So now we could add that coordination, access height above ceiling. It's going to be an instance type parameter. I'm going to go ahead and move that to not be in dimensions, but to be in construction. Oh, construction. And we're going to say that the access height above the ceiling is equal to the height minus, oh, can't do the minus. You got to do the minus after you copy the other one. Control C minus the Control V. Load that into the project. That would then tell you that this guy under construction has an access height of 3 foot. So if we had a schedule of the access panels, we don't have one. What were they called? Specialty equipment? Good. View, schedule the quantities. Specialty equipment. And we could have the access height above the ceiling. I don't know if you would want to mark number. Sorting and grouping, access height above the ceiling, okay. So we'd like to do a little bit more than that, wouldn't we? Let's see, come to here. Access, panel, height. Let's close everything. Get rid of that family. Open up this guy. WT. So what do we know about these things here? Are they given a mark? They're not given a mark. Are they? Okay. So we could then say, in this guy here, we could have the family name. Move that up. Filter. You can't filter by the family name. Can you filter by the type? Nope.
But isn't there one that lists both of them type N family or something.
Yeah, but I don't know that that's going to allow you to sort that either. See, you can't do a filter. You can only do a filter against certain parameters.
Huh.
But we could say if the access height above the ceiling parameter exists, we could say that. Then it would only be the ones that had that parameter built into it. So then we could take those other fields and get rid of them. So this one here, we could go XX and go right to that guy and say that's not really what needs to be that height. We could come up there 12 foot to see if that gets to that thing. Maybe 12'6". So what now happens is, can you see it? We think that all those are good. They said somewhere around 3 foot was too high.
Yeah.
Well, we could make that one be 2'6".
Oh. Excuse me.
Oh. Yep, that would work. Go to this one, go XX. We could lower that one by a little bit. So what needs to happen is you need to go to every one of those guys. This would be your worst situation. Oh, yeah, and he doesn't need to go that high.
You're not accessing the roof from there?
I hear you, smart pants. I do think you're going to probably have to go pretty high. So those all need to be checked now, which is what I'm going to end up doing. Actually, you know what I'd like to know? This filter, sorting and grouping, give me a grand total. There's 76 of them access panels. I got to go double check.
You have to double check the height of them?
I got to double check the height of them, and I got to check those locations off of those PDFs that we started the meeting with.
Yeah, I don't understand why they don't just draw a box where they want you to move the fucking thing. Instead of having to give you a decipher. Is that because then they take full credit for where it's supposed to be, and if anything's wrong,
well, that's because then you put it, and then it's below a piece of steel, and they said, "Why is it there?" And you said, "Because you told me to put it there."
Yeah, seems like a fun game.
It seems like a fun game, but it's a game that's got to be played because they need to know where to put these access panels when they're putting out the framing.
No, I know.
I mean,
all right.
There is no good solution for it other
time?
than do it. The other meeting's at 2:00.
All right.
Are you going to be around 2?
Yeah. Is that on StreamYard or that's on the other thing?
That's on the other one. That's going to give you nightmares.
That's fine. No, I'll be fine. I'll just open it in the Safari or whatever the fuck the other browser is.
All right. I appreciate you humoring me and doing this. I don't know that anyone's going to stumble into it. At the end of the day, the real gist is, and I haven't seen anyone kick in the private chat. Unfortunately, Paul hasn't come back. Misty hasn't come back. So we don't really have any of that stuff. My question is if I end this stream, do I have to start a new stream? See, because when we kick off of this stream, I think Ginger's still going to be there.
Uh-huh.
Ginger, you wouldn't happen to be there, would you? And that was where we talked before that I'd really like Ginger in the field to be telling me in the chat, I'm on, I'm not on.
Yeah.
Because then I could actually ask her a question like, has Paul had any luck? Did Jason find any information? Or are we going to go into this meeting looking like dumbasses at 2:00? I think the answer is the last one.
Yeah, well, there's not much. I mean, if you can't get the information, you can't get the information. It doesn't make you a dumbass.
Well, it does when you thought you could build this stuff to the submittal by Monday, but then you read the submittal, which someone could say you
read the cryptic submittal.
Yeah, but you probably should have reviewed that submittal months ago. So it comes into you don't really want to look as stupid as you really are.
The chain of evidence, the chain of information does not go fast enough.
No, it doesn't. What the hell is that duct right there? The one that's below the ceiling?
Doesn't look like it's a good one.
Oh, that really does not look good, does it, Eric?
Nope. I'm not sure exactly where you are, but is that one of the kitchen ones?
Sure does look like it.
That's probably new. I would go the other way and see where it's headed.
I would probably take that and go to my 3D. You should see a box. That's Marketplace. Nope. Back of house. Back of house. Right in there. That's one Misty was just whipping out, and I don't think she was looking at. Where does it go? Oh, I see where it goes to. And it's above most of the ceiling.
It should just be able to lift up, right? Get right above that vent line. Oh, you don't have everything in there. Shit.
Yep.
Well, she went through and didn't have any clashes except for she punched through the soffit face.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Nah, she should still be fine. I don't know what that white stuff is.
The white?
That's plumbing, I'm seeing. You just got to get above that one plumbing line, I think.
And they're going to say, you've been coordinating this for 6 months? For a year? It was like, yeah, we just got the exhaust fans.
Yeah, it would have been nice to have them a year ago so we could have pushed them through at a convenient spot. I think it can just go right up above that vent line, right?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, man. I got to get something to eat.
All right, buddy. Be good.
Sorry. Yeah, I'll see you too.
I'm just going to go ahead and end this. I'll send you a link.
All right, man.
Later, bud.
Later.